Welcome to 2020. We've been calling our current state social distancing, yet it's time now more than ever to come together. For right now, we'll honor the spatial distancing set before us, but it's not an excuse to forego reaching out to others. I know what you're thinking. You see the title, you see my hair, you see my eyes, you see my skin color. I can sunburn really easily. But the thing is, I'm from the Bay Area of California. And it's very different from the little town of Rexburg that we've got going on here. California is home to 7 of the 10 most diverse cities in the nation. The top 3 being Stockton, Oakland, and Sacramento, and they're all found in the Bay Area. The 7th most diverse city in the nation is San Jose, and that is where I hail from. I grew up in a little town within southern San Jose named Embree, and 58.1% of my neighborhood is Asian, 19.7% is Hispanic, and 17% is white. I was constantly exposed to different languages, different customs, and foods. I really love the food part. And I was never able to fully verbally communicate with everyone. There's a vast language barrier and I had a slow learning curve. Yet we worked together and learned bit by bit more about our friends and our neighbors' heritages. We made many grocery stops to the Mexican tienda by the mall for some tres leches cake, or to the Lion Market downtown for some soybean paste to make miso soup. I loved being able to celebrate New Year's on January 1st and then again at Chinese New Year's. I was thrilled every time a mariachi band was hired to play at the pool that I worked at, and even more thrilled when they hired a taco guy to come. I loved it when we drove around and visited the local Hindu temples and participated in the holy chalk throwing ceremonies. I even loved it when this past Christmas our German friend came over and taught us about her Advent wreath her family has been passing down for generations. Now, I have a confession to make. When I was little, maybe this is the OCD in me speaking or acting up, but my grandma would take me to get my nails done at the Vietnamese beauty salon in town. And as a tow-headed 9-year-old, I would watch the ladies paint my nails and wait for an eternity while they'd go back and forth and speak in Vietnamese to each other, whether about us customers or whether it was about the Vietnamese soap opera playing in the background. I couldn't tell. But after while I was waiting for what felt like another eternity, I would kneel down in front of the Buddha shrine where they were burning the incense, and I would dust off the Buddha statue with my free time. 99% of the time, I would ruin my nails, and it was because I hadn't waited long enough for them to dry. Nevertheless, those kind ladies would bring me back to their chairs and fix up my nails, the paint that I had ruined, with smiles on their faces, and they'd always remember to tell me to come again soon. I might have felt a little bit guilty about ruining my nails, but I love the sense of family that I felt there. Now, this is what I thought was normal. For my mom, though, it wasn't, and for most people, it's not. My mother grew up in Spokane, Washington, a small farming town full of people just like her. She had an honest upbringing, but coming to California when she married my dad was a huge culture shock. She explained to me that it was because when she started work, she couldn't understand most of everyone. Their accents were too thick, and they were too foreign for her to understand and make out. She felt out of place, uncomfortable, and lost for a period of time. I had a similar experience to her, you could say, when I went to Utah for my first summer camp. I looked around with wide eyes and raised eyebrows, and I said, "Mom, look, there's people who look just like me here. It's so weird." 95% of the students at my local high school were part of the minority origin. I was one of 3 blondes in my grade, and to be suddenly surrounded by people who also fit the towhead description was a culture shock in and of itself. I was honestly so uncomfortable with it at first, and it took a while for it to set in. When eventually I moved up here to Rexburg for school, that shock came again. There was just some California things like plastic bags and recycling that I had to deal with, but most of the shock came from hearing how others speak to each other. Diverse areas tend to have a wider vocabulary when it comes to different ethnicities, so I was used to making a difference between Japanese and Korean instead of using the blanket Asian term. I thought it was offensive to call people black. I had been using the term African American where it was appropriate so far. I honestly got frustrated with it all. I thought I moved to a town full of racist people. It made me feel very uncomfortable to be open with people and share my upbringing with them. Now, the New York Times tells us that in the year 2044, the white Democratic majority is projected to fall below 50%, making it a minority. In fact, in 2018, over a quarter of the population with Asian or Hispanic heritage married someone outside of their own race. We are becoming more and more a melting pot of cultures and races as time goes on. We see this even more blatantly when we look at the percentage of racial or ethnic minorities in different age groups. The boomer generation back in the late 1960s only claims 18% of their group to be minorities. This number jumps to 30 in the 1980s with the Generation X, then again to 39% in 2002 with the millennials. The most eye-catching percentage came in 2018. 48% of the 6 to 21-year-olds are considered minorities, and that won't be a minority for much longer. In 2020, this number has already grown and will continue to do so. The California demographics that we have going on in the Bay are quickly becoming America's demographics as a whole. We live in a nation that is preoccupied by race. For some, this statistic has shattered others' ideas of nationalism, and by these findings by Pew Research Center have sparked some backlash. Is it because change can be daunting? Is it because we're not accustomed to reaching out to others outside of our own comfort zone? Is it because we are intimidated by others who are not like us? With recent outbreak of coronavirus and other global and national tragedies, we see how quick people are to turn against and blame entire groups of people for actions of others. If a scientist was gathering data for a poll nationwide, he wouldn't just survey one little town in Minnesota. He would strategically approach dozens of different areas and different groups across the nation to produce more accurate results. Our cultural education is not accurate if we keep to ourselves. If we take pride in all of our 50 states with the lush forests and the rocky coasts and the dry deserts, why don't we take pride in our 50+ demographic groups that make up our nation? Although it took her some time, my mother has grown into her home in San Jose. She loves the different traditions we share with our neighbors and community. She has grown as a person because of it as well. Throughout my upbringing, she has learned to call San Jose home and has appreciated being able to practice her Spanish when she can. As for me, I acclimated as well. I eventually made friends with people from all over and grew more and more used to the culture up here. In the end, I naturally gravitated towards more ethnic people. I think the majority of my friends are either Latino or who can speak Spanish. Now, it wasn't on purpose, but I feel more comfortable around a mix of people, and it reminds me of home. My invitation is simple. We need to reach out to others who reside outside of our comfort zone, at least outside of the 6 feet zone that we have set before us. We cannot afford to isolate and separate ourselves. We need to learn and grow from each other. Go ahead and say hi to somebody new. Ask for their name, their story, ask about their family. Simply, we are here to get up, get out, and get connected.